Kim Iversen made a video about something that Tim Pool did. And in all retrospect, I thought it was spot on. Tim had a problem with that video. So there has been this back and forth feud between Tim Pool and Kim Iversen on X, but then it transferred over to video. So Tim Pool is responding to Kim Iversen, responding to the first video that she made. He said, Kim Iversen is making shit up because she's a grifter with an agenda. Here's me tweeting about the meeting just after leaving and a full day before Jewish Insider published anything. Additionally, Jessica Krause posted photos of us at the event. She posted before and during photos and videos. So he is sharing, I think, a screenshot here of a tweet that he made that said, just left a meeting with Prime Minister Netanyahu in DC. Interesting discussion. I will discuss more tonight on Timcast IRL. And that is a reply to Kim Iversen saying, you admitted it to the Jewish Insider, published names after the Jewish Insider published names and described the whole thing. So let's get into all of this. So basically, to make a long story short, okay, there were a couple of influencers that attended a private meeting with Benjamin Netanyahu, and Tim Pool was one of those influencers. Now, I have big concerns about that, as did Kim Iversen, and I think that's really the point that Kim was trying to get across in the initial video when she covered this, which was that it's not okay if independent media is having a private meeting with Benjamin Netanyahu, because no, he's not going to meet with you to say, be transparent about Israel and Gaza. He's going to meet with you because he wants you to continue to be pro-Israel. He's not going to meet with you to let you be fair. He's going to meet with you so that you can spread propaganda that is going to benefit him. So they had a whole back and forth exchange, and I want to show you what Kim Iversen said here as she's responding to Tim Pool's tweet.
Well, to no real surprise, Tim Pool clapped back at the segment I did yesterday where I criticized him having a secret Chatham House rules meeting with Netanyahu and other Israeli senior officials. I want to play for you a little bit of the video that he did. He put out numerous tweets. In fact, here was one of the longest tweets that he put out, plus subsequent tweets after this one. In fact, he called me a lot of names. So in this tweet right here, he says, this is a grift. Kim is framing everything as inherently wrong. He says, Kim is twisting everything to fit a boogeyman narrative. Several of the people there posted photos before and during the event, yet she says no one else admitted to the meeting. She also said Chatham House rules is not for journalists, which is 100% about journalists. Who else is going to attribute quotes to someone in a publication? He then went on to say, I'm sure she'll be shocked to discover that I met in private with Trump, members of Congress, CEOs, in fact, even former Soviet generals, gang leaders, revolutionaries, all secretly, apparently, and in private. He then did a 42-minute video. So he's on a tear with this. So he has responded. Mm-hmm. He's not only tweeted this, he's also tweeted other things like this one here, calling me the name at the bottom there. Imagine if you did like a single Google search for the pronunciation. He makes fun of yesterday I was saying Chatham House rules. Apparently it's Chatham. Sorry, I'm not part of the DC swamp. And I also am from the West Coast, not the East Coast. So this is a totally unfamiliar word to me. He'll say, well, that's because you're not a real journalist. That's why you don't know this word. Well, or how about...
Let me pause there for a second. People kill me with this, you're not a real journalist thing, right? So Tim Pool basically became popular for covering Occupy Wall Street. And that was when he was more on the left, right? And somewhere along the way, I think he realized he could make more money on the right. So he did change, like his coverage changed. When it comes in particular to Israel and Gaza, he was very clear about the fact that he didn't really know much about the situation until after October 7th, right? So he was not really clear on that. Now, someone who is not really clear on that particular issue just had a private meeting with Benjamin Netanyahu. You guys don't think that's a problem? He's independent media. So yeah, the point that Kim was getting across in that initial video was that some of these people who say they're independent media are behaving in such ways that is allowing propaganda to slowly creep its way over onto the independent media side. And that's what you're seeing. And that is a problem. Benjamin Netanyahu met with you for a reason. He didn't meet with you because it's like, hey, let's just go and shoot the shit. No, Benjamin Netanyahu met with Tim Pool because there is a narrative that Benjamin Netanyahu wants those influencers to either continue pushing or start pushing. So that's a problem. Yes. And she rightfully called that out. Now, Kim and I don't agree on everything, but she's right about that. Let's continue.
Real journalists don't agree to Chatham House rules. In fact, only journalists that show up to meetings like the Bilderberg Group agree to this type of stuff. It's sinister. It's propagandizing. It's meant for elites. And, you know, most people don't do it or know about it. So that's fine. I don't care. But Chatham, yeah, in order to make him happy, so he stops criticizing that. So he says, oh, shit, I tweeted literally after the meeting happened. And an hour after Jessica Krause posted a photo of me there with several people. Right. So he's saying, ooh, Kim, you got me. It was so secret, but it wasn't secret. So what are you over here complaining about? I'm not complaining about the fact we know about the meeting. I didn't uncover the meeting and I didn't put it out there for my audience like, look, I uncovered this secret meeting. No, my criticism is the fact you agreed to a meeting with a foreign leader trying to get us into war, a foreign leader who is committing a genocide. You agreed to a Chatham House rules meeting with that guy, which is particularly sinister. That is different than an off-the-record meeting. That is also different than having an anonymous source or attributing a quote or information to, you know, a senior leader in the Israeli government. That is a very different, Chatham House rules is very different. We're going to get to that. But let me show you some of the 42-minute video he also did. Which, by the way, Tim is very sensitive, obviously, about this because the majority of his viewers are actually against him on this issue. They don't think he should have had this meeting. They do think he's more pro-Israel in his defense. They question his integrity. And how we know this for sure. The video he posted, the 42-minute video that I'm going to share clips from, as of right now, this moment, there are 5,000 likes on the YouTube video, but there are 6.3 thousand dislikes on this video.
Yeah, this is another thing she's right about. Like on that issue, they are not in agreement with him for the most part.
He is being ratioed on his tweets. He's being ratioed on this video. His fans are not in agreement with him on this. They're more in agreement with me on this. So this is why I think he's being particularly defensive and felt like the need to put out numerous tweets, calling me numerous names and making a 42-minute video. It's unfortunate. I like Tim. I've always liked Tim. I've been to Tim's, been on his show several times. And we bonded over being part Asian, both of us. And I still liked him. I don't have anything against him. I am absolutely going to call out integrity issues in journalism when I see them, be they friend or foe. So I don't have a personal bent on this, but Tim certainly does with some of the things that he is, you know, but I mean, he feels attacked, so I don't blame him. Let's go ahead and watch this first little clip from the 42-minute video, which you are free to watch the entire thing, of course.
I want to answer Eric real quick. You can see dislikes on a video if you have a certain tool, I think. Some people, I think if you have a tool, you can see dislikes on someone's video. It might be an extension that you have to add.
I'd like to thank Kim Iversen for this. Admittedly, it's a slow news day, but I think we get an opportunity to expose what it means to be a grifter.
Yes, we will.
We've had Kim Iversen on the show. I was a fan for a while, but she seems to have gone off the deep end. I suppose it's a desperate bid for relevance, as is with many people.
Wow. Wow.
A desperate bid for relevance. I'm not the one who took $400,000 a month from a company without asking where they were getting their money from. Seems like that would have been integrity journalism rule number one. Find out where the hell the money comes from. And then you find out, whoops, it came from Russia. I'm not the one that defends the Israelis, that will not... That balks at, if you remember this clip, the USS Liberty clip, where he's like, oh, we can't talk about this, right?
Dude, I'm concerned with having American aircraft carriers over there. Like, what I keep being told about the USS Liberty, that's something with the Israeli government No,
Yes.
you should be careful about that one.
Be careful about that. Be careful about that. Okay. So calling me the grifter here, saying that I'm doing the bid for relevance. I'm not the one that took an Access Journalism meeting with Netanyahu thinking that it was going to be under Chatham House rules. It ended up not being. That does not, but Tim went into that meeting believing it would be, and believing that people would adhere to it, believing that the meeting would be entirely kept secret. And when he saw that it wasn't, he decided he needed to come out with it. But he otherwise agreed to this. How many other meetings has he had under Chatham House rules where he's willing to go, sit, get the information? And under those rules, you are unable to attribute any of that information to anyone at any. It's very different than an unnamed source. An unnamed source, you could say a senior Israeli official expressed concern about blah, blah, blah. You could say that. Under Chatham House rules, you can't say that at all. You can't even, you basically have to act like the meeting didn't exist.
So I will say this much. For me, and I'll go on record saying this, I'm not having any meeting with anyone under Chatham House rules. I follow Sabby rules. Okay. And my whole thing is, and I've told people this before, there have been people who have contacted me and said, can I tell you something off the record and you can report on it? Well, no, if you tell me it's off the record, no, I can't. Like, just stuff like that. But I follow Sabby rules, and my rules say F that. I should be able to say, yes, I met with said person, especially if you're independent media. Otherwise, you're just falling into the same trap that corporate media is a part of. What are we sitting in these back rooms with cigars? Well, what is happening to independent media? This is why I said before, this is so important that we have to make sure that people who are independent stay independent. And that's up to you guys, because the money is kind of funny, but a lot of people don't mind being kind of funny, if you know what I'm talking about. So it's really up to the viewers and the audience for you guys to keep them in check. It's up to you to tell them, don't go that way. Stay independent. And for me, I'm lucky that I can say that I've stayed independent. But I'm going to tell you, when I see people who are so-called independent and they're meeting with Benjamin Netanyahu, why did he contact you? Why they want you to meet with him? Oh, because Tim Pool has a big show. A lot of people have big shows. They contacted you. They didn't bring in anybody who gave the Palestinian perspective of this conflict. They ain't bringing anybody that's calling it a genocide. So that's a problem for me, number one. I'll let Kim go on a little bit more here, and then we're going to get to the Nico video.
So it's propagandizing. That's the purpose of it. It's meant for these elites to get together, spew out narratives to journalists, have journalists keep the information source extremely secret, not just anonymous, but not even attributing it to anything at all. And it's also different from an off-the-record conversation. An off-the-record conversation is you are gathering information from somebody in the know. You are not to be using that information publicly. You're not to publish it. You're not to attribute it. You're not to say anything about it. It's literally meant for background information or extra information so you can follow a lead. That is an off-the-record information, an off-the-record meeting. And again, an anonymous source or, don't attribute it to me. Keep, you could say senior level, you could say this, but don't say anything else. This is what I said. You can attribute that. When you have these types of other meetings, then you start saying stuff and you can't say, well, I heard it from a senior Israeli official. You're not allowed to say that. That's why it's so particularly sinister. So he goes on to criticize, and this is what he says. The Chatham House rule was never meant to be used by journalists.
Wrong. This is so ridiculously wrong. Kim doesn't even know how to pronounce the word.
Oh, here we go with the grammar police. Yes, if that's your only rebuttal, you know that you're already on the wrong foot. Or comment.
He definitely wouldn't like me then, because I mispronounce shit often. But you know what? I'm willing to admit it. Like, hey, I'm not quite sure about this, or how do you pronounce your name, or whatever. But Tim's perfect, right?
Haters or anyone whose whole brand is, I tell you what the establishment won't.
Yes, Chatham House rules are so that powerful elites, literally, this is what they say in all these meetings. They say, If you quote me on this, I will be impeached. I will be fired. I will be strung up by the board. Our shares will collapse. But these are things that you should know.
That's not exactly quite true. That would be more like sitting down with an anonymous source and saying, again, a senior level leader or somebody with inside information or somebody close to Trump. We see that every day in the news. Chatham House rules is very different. That means come to the meeting, hear what we have to say, but act like it never happened. It just so happened Tim was not able to act like it never happened because Jessica Krause started taking a bunch of photographs, and the word was already out there because the other people in the meeting, also not DC insider elites, they didn't know about Chatham House rules.
And so
it's basically independent media journalists walking into these smoke-filled rooms that we have criticized, like, politicians for doing as well. That's a problem. Guys, I've been trying to sound the alarm about this. I'm dead serious. Propaganda has been seeping its way into independent media. I'm not kidding, because some people are trying to take the money. Some people are willing to sell out for the money. And what they don't realize is, number one, if you scale the fuck back, some people spend a lot of money on this stuff, man. And everything behind me is cheap. That chalkboard was like $2.99. It's not even a real chalkboard. It's like a chalk mat or whatever. Like, everything behind me is cheap. And some people went and they spent a lot of money for these expensive studios, etc. You don't have to have an expensive studio to get your point across. And some of these channels, they're starting to look more and more like corporate media. What's the point of you being independent if you want to look like corporate media? I never really understood that. But this went on for quite a bit, right? Because Kim even had to, argue with the producer here. I want to bring this up. His producer had some things to say, I guess. Honestly, are you intentionally lying to your audience, or are you just this dumb? It takes all of 30 seconds to look up which rules are more secretive, and you literally just fed your audience bullshit. Where is your journalistic integrity? And she posts a screenshot here, says an off-the-record meeting is generally more secretive and restricts the sharing of information more strictly than a meeting held under Chatham House rule. The Vegas rule, which is often associated with off-the-record, dictates that nothing discussed in the meeting can be shared outside of it. The Chatham House rule, on the other hand, allows for the sharing of information but prohibits attribution to specific individuals. So, Kim did respond and said, Lisa, how do we explain this to you so that you can understand? Off the record means it's not meant to be shared publicly at all, meaning the person giving the information is not looking for you to propagandize on their behalf. In fact, they want the information to stay completely private, and they'd be upset if it got out. Chatham House rule means you're allowed to share any and all information, but not share where the information came from. It is a way for elites to spread messages they want shared without any accountability or attribution. Elites want the message out there. They just don't want the public knowing it's coming from them. Hope this helps. Damn. Damn, Kim. Okay, so why is this all important, right? Because I think that people forget who Tim Pool was. And I think we see it was interesting that he called Kim Iversen a grifter. Whether you agree with her or not, Kim does do a lot of research. You got to give her that, whether you agree or not. But let's see the evolution of Tim Pool. And Nico did such a good job on this. Watch Nico break down why this is so problematic. Again, you went into a smoke-filled room. You got information from genocider-in-chief Benjamin Netanyahu. And why is that okay? A lot of independent media has been compromised. Let's go into this here.
So Tim Pool, along with several other right-wing influencers, met with Netanyahu in what was called a Chatham-style meeting. So Chatham-style simply means, in journalistic terms, we're not allowed to know exactly what was said by whom in the meeting, nor are we allowed to know exactly who attended, although there were some journalists that slipped up and mention some names. So on its face, the fact that a bunch of influencers and journalists and pundits were invited to a meeting with Netanyahu and they were not allowed to mention direct quotes from Netanyahu should be a little bit suspicious to everybody. But to be clear, this motherfucker being invited to that meeting is hilarious. Because some of you all might recall, whenever he joined the Daily Wire, right after Candace Owens left, and was tweeting out these pro-Israel, Israeli flag posts, he tried to play it off like it was a joke and we just didn't know that we were being trolled. Trying to pretend as if his shift towards being extremely pro-Zionist and pro-Israel had nothing to do with the fact that he was joining the Daily Wire with Ben Shapiro. So Tim was just trolling. But apparently he did such a good job convincing the world that he was pro-Israel that he was literally invited to a private meeting with Bibi Netanyahu.
Not to mention, Tim Pool said so himself that he was not even aware of the Israel-Gaza issue until after October 7th. So how could you even choose a side at that particular point? Don't forget, Max Blumenthal went onto Tim Pool's show and gave a whole big lesson about Gaza and what Gaza was. Do you guys not see? How can you pretend you don't know when it was right in front of you? Let's continue.
This is the same guy who, whenever a guest brought up the fact that Israel has a disproportionate amount of influence on U.S. politics, he said that the world is just suffering from Israel derangement syndrome.
I think you got Israel derangement syndrome.
Okay, well, but
I call it Israel-Palestine derangement syndrome.
then
Israel derangement syndrome. Israel derangement syndrome. I think you're obsessed with Israel. You have some kind of obsession with Israel.
I've answered your procedural objection.
You literally didn't.
I said
You brought up Israel every fucking time. Holy shit, brother. Dude, you're obsessed. It's like your brain is stuck in Israel.
And of course, when people called him out on social media for meeting with Bibi Netanyahu, he doubled down. Once again, claiming that everybody has Israel derangement syndrome. But I'm confused, Tim. Is it really derangement syndrome whenever they have the most financial influence over our politicians, which means they have the most political influence over our politicians and generally the world? Oh, and they were able to have a personal liaison within the United States intelligence community in which the black ops they committed were only known by him. And Netanyahu can just show up unannounced, invite some of the most popular right-wing Zionist influencers in the world to a meeting at the White House, and then tell y'all to shut up about what y'all talked about? The only thing deranged about this conversation is the fact that you are unwilling to admit how much influence Israel has over the United States and even your ass. Because once again, we have to remember this is the same man who once had Max Blumenthal on to educate people about what was happening in Gaza.
You cannot say, and this is why the video still lives on forever, right? The people who interviewed people like Abby Martin or Max Blumenthal or Aaron Mate or even Kim, because Kim went to the West Bank, or Kim Iversen, and Kim Iversen was on Tim Pool's show. You can't say, oh, I didn't know about this. Man, please. Max Blumenthal was on your show for how long? Let's bring up the timestamp. 2 hours? 2 hours. And that was Max Blumenthal talking about the so-called beheaded babies hoax. You see what I'm saying? How can you say you didn't know? It's not like Max Blumenthal shows up and doesn't bring any receipts. It's not like he shows up and doesn't sound like he knows what he's talking about. Nico, you killing it.
He went from that to telling Bibi Netanyahu during a press conference that it's actually Qatar who's behind the rise in anti-Semitic content online. Which, by the way, is actually quite hilarious considering that Qatar is actually an ally of the United States and has never really ever made a move, a significant one anyway, against Israel. Not to mention, it adds insult to injury thinking about the fact this man had the audacity to say Qatar is funding anti-Israel voices when clearly there's motherfuckers in the room with Netanyahu because Israel is funding anti-Palestine voices. And
you see that? That was Dave Rubin.
they don't even care if those voices actually know what they're talking about because Tim Pool admitted he doesn't know much of anything, if at all, about this issue. And yet he's sitting in the room with Bibi Netanyahu. Y'all think it's because of his expertise? No, it's because he's willing to shut down any and all anti-Israel talk or anything that can implicate them in anything shady. Like whenever the USS Liberty was brought up on his show, Tim Pool immediately said, you should be careful about what you're saying. And even Lauren Chen has to tell him, they did end up having to pay out the American government because of what happened with the USS Liberty. And following this logic, Ian says that he has a genuine fear that there might be a missile launched out of Gaza that attacks the United States, and it would be a false flag that actually came from Israel. And Tim proceeds to say, it doesn't matter where the missile comes from.
Dude, I'm concerned with having American aircraft carriers over there. Like, what I keep being told about the USS Liberty. That's something where the Israeli government.
No, you should.
No. Wait.
You should be careful about that.
Allegedly, the Israeli Air Force jet fighter aircraft.
I mean, they did end up paying out the American government.
So I'm concerned, like false flag operation, like a missile comes out of Gaza and hits one of our aircraft carriers, but it was actually an Israeli missile. Well, I don't want. we should get out of there.
It doesn't. But let me stop you there. It doesn't matter where the missile comes from.
Oh, do you see this? It doesn't. Tim is acting like these videos don't exist.
So Tim is admitting he doesn't care if Israel commits a false flag that puts American lives in danger, as long as it benefits Israel. Yeah, it's because Tim is completely and totally morally bankrupt. That's why he got that meeting with Bibi Netanyahu. Because Bibi needs more people like that on his team. And I just gotta wonder, would Tim Pool and his audience and his ilk be okay if Xi Jinping came to the White House and invited a bunch of leftists to have a one-on-one meeting privately with a Chatham-style press conference? Or would y'all be cool if Vladimir Putin did that? Just out of curiosity. Because even after learning that Israel participated in killing American citizens, you were still willing to meet with Bibi. And if a leftist did something like that with Xi Jinping, even though he never killed a single American citizen, you would spend 2 hours bitching about it and then go on X and spend 2 more hours bitching about it. This is
Yes, sir. Everybody pay attention. I'm telling you, people have been compromised.
what makes people like Tim Pool so dangerous, because he's somebody who can literally admit he knows nothing about the issue, but because he has an audience and is willing to take money from anyone, as long as they're willing to pay the right price, he will say whatever he wants to whomever he has to say it to, even if it's against American interests and even if it's against the interests of his own audience. The only thing consistent about this man's principles is the beanie on his head. That's it. And the fact that Tim Pool is willing to look the other way when a genocide is happening for money says everything we need to know about him. But the fact that Bibi Netanyahu is recruiting people who know nothing really about what's happening in that region just because they're willing to tout the lines that he's telling him to tout says everything we need to know about him. In other words, you can't believe shit that's coming out of none of their mouths. And the fact that the Trump administration is personally inviting Netanyahu and allowing him to tell American influencers what they should and should not be saying about Israel tells us everything we need to know about him as well. So you go ahead and keep pulling that chair to make sure your master sits down comfortably, Trump. Can we see who you're really working for?
First of all, let's go ahead and drop the damn beat for Nico House. Dance with me. Dance with me. Do the bump. Shake the butt. Hey. There is no takedown like that. Takedown. He was spot on it. Guys, there has been infiltration. There has been compromise. I'm not kidding. And I've watched these things happen, right? So you can look back on my stuff and you can see I still talk about the same issues, maybe even added more to it. But some of these people, you started out covering Occupy Wall Street, and now you see just how ain't no way, man. You sitting there with Netanyahu. So yeah, it's a problem, guys, because we have people that are independent media, but they're doing the same things that corporate media do. And they are allowing propaganda to creep in. That's a problem. I think Theo hits the nail right on the head here. Here's a big part of it. right?
Because then you also wonder, like, what, like, if there's Israeli influence, because that's a big thing now. Like, how much Israeli influence is there in like American politics? You know?
Oh, there's a lot. Yeah,
and it seems to be a ton. I feel like America's just like, it feels like we're just owned by Israel. You know, and we just never knew it.
I thought we owned them.
That's what I thought.
Uh-oh.
I think Theo hit the nail right on the head. By the way, Theo to me will always be Theo from Road Rules, because that's where I knew Theo from. He was on MTV Road Rules. But guys, I'm trying to tell you, they're getting to independent media commentators. They're getting to some of these people. Now, not everybody, but they're getting to some of them. And I told you guys, there were offers that were made to me, but I didn't take them. Some people are taking them. And if he's meeting with Benjamin Netanyahu, like I said, you mean one side, not the other side. You meeting with Benjamin Netanyahu, he wanted you to meet with him. I think we know what that means your content is going to be like, which you've been defending Israel anyway. And now Benjamin Netanyahu's telling you what they want you to say. People have been compromised, man. And that's to Kim's point, right? We talk about changing history. What Kim was trying to get across is that you met with him because they want you to push the narrative that they want. He wants you to continue being pro-Israel and how to talk about Israel. That's why you met with Benjamin Netanyahu. And that's sad. It's a sad day for media, because what that says is that audience members are going to see this and they're going to say, we can't trust, can we even trust independent media? Because Tim Pool doesn't take sponsors, right? He doesn't have sponsors. Isn't that what he said? Like the coffee or whatever is his own coffee. And he said he was independent. They're getting to the independent people, you guys. And then you have people who came from corporate media, either because they were fired or laid off, and they're coming over to YouTube, bringing the corporatism with them. So I think Kim had a point. Whether she was pronounced Chatham right or whatever, I think is irrelevant at this point. The point that she was getting across is that your work is not going to be fair on that particular issue because you were compromised. Case in point. Let's go to, like same thing with Russell Brand. We saw what happened, how people have changed. Like it's so obvious. So obvious, man. Let's go to the comments here. Sebastian says, Tim Pool has always been a grifter. He was once part of Vice Media. Thank you, Huey. I wonder if Tim was offered money or if he's getting blackmailed. I'm telling you, man, this sounds like a Whitney Webb project, right? It sounds like something Whitney, may want to look into. JB says, Tim is just mad that Kim discovered that BB took a dip in the pool. Heidi says, I am sure Tim Pool is going to start pushing some major anti-China, anti-Iran propaganda in the coming months. Wait for it. Thank you, Baby Ethernet. Netanyahu needs Tim for media warfare and propaganda. Yeah, because he has a really large audience, you guys. Hey guys, this was a Sabby clip. If you like what you saw, hit that like button and subscribe.